What's up, humans? Welcome to the Human Music Podcast. I'm Luke Rain. My co-hosts are Tesco and Rip Kinney, and we are all music producers, artists, and producer coaches. This show is where we discuss all things music production and interview amazing creatives about their origins, their process, and whatever else comes up. This week is episode 126, The Power of Committing as a Music Producer. Commitment is important to being a music producer, but what does that really mean? We explore commitment from the micro to the macro. Committing to your musical phrases, committing to arranging ideas into songs, committing to practicing, mixing, and mastering on each song, committing to the process of learning as you go, committing to audio from MIDI and when not to, committing to your sound, and committing to finishing the song and releasing it. Speaking of releases, the song of the week is Rip Kinney's Sinister Intentions featuring Dream Tonic. You can check it at the links below, and also make sure to check out on Rip Kinney's YouTube channel his full album audio-visual project. It is super cool. I got to preview it when I was in Bend, Oregon, visiting Rip Kinney on my road trip in September. Highly recommend. Also support our sponsors, the Spice It Up Percussion and Foley Pack, over 2,000 percussion loops and one-shots from Luke Rain and Porch, along with 50 rack instruments for Reason and Ableton. Dojo TV, where you can get free producer live stream classes from the Producer Dojo Senseis. This is where we record this podcast every other Tuesday, and there's a lot of other good content there too. You can get Tesco's Patreon, where you can get track feedback, private lessons, and more from your boy Tesco. The weekly download, where you can learn from our mentor Il Gates and his private weekly group lessons and get access to over 300 more episodes in the archive for just $20 a month. It's an insane deal. And guest practices, where you can learn from Seth Drake at the Approach Institute. He's the best engineer we know, and your first class over there is free. You can get more episodes, social, sound packs, more streaming sites at thehumanmusicpodcast.com. But let's get on into this episode.
Hello, people of Earth. This is Tesco with Rip Kenny and Trap Jesus, and you're listening to the Human Music Podcast. Woo!
Human Music Podcast. I like it. What's up, humans? We are back. We are back. And we're live on Mars. Dojo TV and shit. What's good, y'all?
And things. Hello, friends.
Whee!
It feels like it's been a minute.
It has been a minute.
It's been a whole month.
It's been like 3 minutes.
We've been on here, man.
It's been like a whole minute and a few days plus a month.
Yeah, this is our longest go without an episode in a hot minute of recording. We've been doing the release thing, but hey, we've been.
Needless to say, we have missed
busy
you
today.
We have missed you, chat. Big up.
Yes, we have.
Big ups, chat. Hello, chat.
Definitely no small downs. Big ups only.
Big ups and small downs. No big downs. Sometimes
or
small ups.
Big ups and small. If big ups and small
we don't
downs,
want big
that
downs.
means you got like the nice
exactly.
like sales graph trajectory. You're getting a promotion.
Woo!
For sure.
Yeah, they always have the little dips in that graph in a cartoon. That's what I base my economic policy is.
Otherwise, it wouldn't
graphs
be realistic.
from children's cartoons.
Yes. And stock footage, B-roll footage of people giving presentations to use in YouTube compilations of motivational speech.
Yeah. Amen. So, off the rails, as usual.
Already, it's going to be a good episode.
What to expect.
Yeah.
Don't act like you're surprised. Don't do it.
So, we're going to talk today about a topic that Tesco brought up a while back. And that is commitment.
Ooh.
Type into the chat what commitment means to you.
Not in a romantic sense.
I mean, depends how close you are to your laptop.
I
mean, if it's right there on your lap, it might get romantic. That thing heats up.
Makes you feel all warm and fuzzy.
Let us know in the chat if you ever work with your laptop actually on your lap, or if this is just a goofy name.
I do, but I think it's really bad for you.
I've heard it's bad for your sperm count for
Yes.
dudes.
Yeah. Thought it keeps kids warm.
Wow.
A little too warm.
You know,
A little too warm. Yeah.
some people need to know that. I don't know who, but that's important, I guess.
If we save one sperm, it's worth it.
Honestly, no lie, I could use that advice. I feel like that's not like commonly followed as it should be. Them shits get hot. I don't know about you, but I've had my thing for like a couple of years now. You plug in the charger, you can fry an egg on that shit.
Oh,
And then I'd be frying my eggs on that shit. And hopefully the outcome isn't too bad.
Is that another sperm reference? I can't tell.
So
Anyway, commitment.
We normally go off the rails like right away, and then we get it back, and then we like pretended to get it back on the rails for a second there, and then just like really crashed the train.
Trust me, this
there.
all ties together.
That was
We're going to reference it at the end.
I don't
It's going to be a big haha.
the biggest commitment in life is having children. So if you want to do that, don't fry your eggs with your laptop.
There it is.
There, wow. Okay, yeah.
Should have
full
been the
stop.
bow tie on
The train
top.
is broken. We had to buy a new one and rerun a new set of tracks.
No, I love it.
and
We're committing
starting on those.
to the tangent.
Yes.
It's very on theme. Commitment is something that I think is really, really important, and like a skill that you develop like you would sound design or composition or anything else like that. And I'm sure you guys have seen this through lessons and can agree that committing to your ideas is a good way to keep the song moving along forward and not get stuck in like decision fatigue land. And I feel like in the beginning, it's not always, cheers to that.
Let's before
But
we
I
like
feel
go
like-
into it, like what
Yeah.
do you mean by like decision fatigue, and why does committing to ideas help with that?
So the thing is, if you're never taking an idea at a certain point, right? Because you're obviously you want to be able to like tweak it and really like get the details down. But certain stuff, if you never commit to the idea, you're going to be limited to certain choices that you can make that won't necessarily move the song forward, and it'll be different and could be quote unquote better, perhaps, depending on your definition. But the thing is, the song just doesn't get done at the end of the day. And to me, it's like raising a kid to be like 8 years old and they like fail like a history test, and you're like, fuck this kid in the trash. So, like, I'm just gonna raise a new kid from the start. Or like something's wrong with it, like I gotta fix it. And it's like maybe that kid wasn't meant to be a history teacher but would be an excellent whatever. So same with your ideas. It's like you don't want to just toss them away and just throw them in the bin, like if they're not fitting a very specific mold, but you also want them to like mature into their final form so that you can actually like gauge whether it's a solid idea. And I think you'll often find like some of your favorite songs don't necessarily have like your favorite like coolest riff or your favorite like sound design or nothing like that, but they're the songs that can take a pretty good idea. Like it doesn't have to be the craziest idea, but if they can develop it in a way over the course of the song to show some sort of progression, then the song is effective and you really like the song. So I think a lot of that stuff only comes through commitment. And by that, I mean like developing your ideas only comes through commitment, because now you're setting like a line in the sand where you're saying, all right, this is gonna be this. Like this kid's not gonna be a history teacher. I'm gonna play to this idea's strengths and move it in this direction so that it could be the best thing it can be.
I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, your child is going to be a DJ.
Every parent's worst nightmare.
The best joke. Boom on your kid DJs. And I kind of want to tease out a couple other places this conversation could go before we dive in. So like commitment, also like the reason you liked that pretty good idea that was, you know, fleshed out and turned into a full song. is because it was committed to and finished and got artwork made and had a release plan and got on Spotify and hit your ears. Like, there's a lot of steps of commitment that it takes to actually put the music out, right? Like I know a lot of people that are really good at producing that just like send whips all the time and like don't ever like finish the thing and put it out. And that can be a lot tied back to commitment as well. And then also, like, even more macro than that, like, if you want to do music, like if you want to be a producer, if you want your kid to be a DJ, you gotta fucking commit to that. Like, it takes a lot of work to get good at that stuff. And like that stuff, yeah, this enigma of stuff,
that little rock star stuff.
Yeah, like, there are so many things that you have to take time to learn and be patient with and suck at for a long time. Like, you got to commit to actually wanting to do it long term if you want success. So I think this conversation would be best served by kind of going back to the micro, zooming in on commitment on like an individual, like track by track. I meant track and Ableton basis, and then we can move out to like finishing a song and then also like that last concept. But yeah, I think for me, commitment on like the micro scale is like when you get an idea that you like and you stop fucking with the MIDI, you know, like it is so easy. And like in my like first few years of intermediate stages, I had chronic fuck with the MIDI issues. Like, oh, but I think the melody could be like a little more catchy. And then like 10 versions later, you're like, damn, I think the first one was actually better, but I don't remember what it was, you know? And like, if you had just committed to that one because you liked it and like just rolled with it and fleshed that idea out, you would have had the song done by now, but you decided to rewrite the melody 10 more times to try and get it 5% better and made it worse. Didn't help.
Facts. Big factuals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys ever do that?
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. And in so many ways other than just MIDI too. It could be like writing a melody. It could be the arrangement. It could be lyrics. Could be like the release plan, like you said. Like, imagine getting caught up on what color is my artwork gonna be.
Blue.
Is it gonna be red or green? Yeah, that's the same thing as like when you're deciding your ideas. And you know, at the end of the day, and this is really hard to lose or to keep perspective of in the moment, but I think everybody needs to hear this at all times, every single day. The song you're working on right now does not mean jack shit. Woo! And you're not going to give a fuck about it in like 2 weeks, hopefully, if you're on the right track. Now, obviously, there is a point where you're going to have to invest more time into your ideas. But once you figure out what the workflow process is like, you don't really gain any additional benefit to overthinking your choices, right? Even in life in general, I feel like it's better to be a little overconfident and to like just dive into things and like believe in yourself a little too much than to not believe in yourself at all and to be like more on the scared side. Obviously, both at the extremes have their cons, but overall, it's better to have more confidence in something and just keep it moving. And like, that's one thing with ideas. I feel like a big part of what gets us into production is over analyzing everything. Why is it not how I want it to be? Why is it not like my heroes? Why did it not turn out quite how I expect? And the sooner you can get over that and just realize that every song will fail your expectations in some way. So many child analogies here, right? It's like your child will fail you in every single way, but you still gotta love them. You still gotta let your ideas mature and see them to the end, because it's only when you see that full process of initial idea to final outcome that you see how effective that idea truly was. You're not going to learn fucking anything tweaking shit over here. At some point, you need to move it along. And the changes you make here can drastically alter the result here. But it doesn't change the fact that at some point, you need to just commit to an idea, even if it's imperfect, and decide that you're going to love it anyway and see it through and develop it.
And every idea is imperfect. There's no perfect idea. There's no perfect song. You know, it's not about perfecting one little thing before you move on. It's about like production, engineering, songwriting. All of these are processes, repeatable processes. Where you like, hey, look, I got an idea. Hey, look, these ideas support that idea. Hey, all those ideas can go in this order called arrangement. Hey, here's how I smooth out the transitions. I'm going to mix it. I'm going to master it. You've got to do that so many times before you'll be even good enough at any of them to like make it worthwhile. So like just keep doing it and commit. And I've been going back listening to some of our older episodes, and for some reason after I listened to our previous episode or a couple episodes ago on the road on my road trip, it just jumped back to episode like 25, which was the first time we had slow form on, and we were talking about how impressed we were with slow form's like amazing speed from going from I've never touched a DAW in my life to I have a label release. And it was like something small, like 2.5 years. And we asked, like, so what do you think was the biggest thing in that rise, in that speed? And she's like, honestly, I think it is because every idea I have, I arrange into a full song, practice mixing and mastering it, and then move on to the next one.
Yeah.
I think that is so huge. No dicking around with the, she was like, I don't just like make the 16 bar loop and then give up. I take that loop and then I arrange it and then I mix it and master it and move on. And she keeps getting better because she practices all parts of the process and doesn't get caught up in the minutia of like, oh, is this song good enough to bother mixing and mastering? Like, who cares? I need practice, and this is the song in front of me.
That's so huge. Like, especially in the chat, we were kind of talking about like the like, oh my God, the song I'm working on right now is like the best thing ever. It's going to be the Tomorrowland 2012 anthem. That's in like 2014 when I was like 6 months into actually producing after I figured out the hot dog style instead of the hamburger in Ableton, aka arrangement view.
Hot dog style, you mean putting sausage fatter on everything?
I didn't even know what sausage fattener was at that time. I was still firmly in the upslope of the Dunning-Kruger curve that we've talked about. And like
the first upslope.
Yeah, the first upslope. The very first, I still know nothing, and I've been on Reddit for about 3 months learning how to produce EDM. Woo! And this song I'm working on right now is gonna be huge. And like, no, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? But like,
the hubris
the thing
of
is,
the
though,
new.
Like that syndrome, like if you get caught too much in that and you like love the next thing you're working on so much that like by the time you actually get to the hard part of finishing music, that last 5%, if you're just guided by dopamine all the time, you're not going to get through that because that last 5% sucks. No matter how good the song was when you started or how cool you felt about it or like how much you thought it was going to be a banger, that last 5% is brutal. Like the little like 2 steps back, 1 step forward, and then maybe 3 steps forward if you're lucky someday. Like that process, you just bang your head against the wall no matter how good it is. And like if you're just wanting to feel the way that you felt like that first day you wrote the song and thought it was cool, like you're never going to finish the song. You got to be okay with trusting the fact that you liked it when you made it and know that that's enough to finish it and put it out and see if other people like it too when they're hearing it for the first time. Chances are if you're only 6 months in, it's not going to be the Tomorrowland anthem, but who knows?
Yeah, but it could be the Todayland good practice to get there.
First,
it's like a 5 out of 10 pun, but 11 out of 10 in terms of truth.
Oh yes.
Man, you know what's interesting? And this is an open question to everybody. If I told you all you had to do was write 100 songs, doesn't matter how good they are, you just have to get them done, write them, arrange them, mix, master them, and don't look back 100 times. And then the 101st and beyond will be the shit you've always dreamed of. Could you do it? Could you just shut up your like mental chatter for 100 songs and not get distracted in every direction and do that? Because I think that would be a very like healthy thing to not get too attached to the songs that you're working on currently. But I feel like a lot of people get held back because it's kind of ironic because they'll commit to one idea but then never finish it, and they'll hold this idea and work on it for months and months and months but never commit to any critical choices in the idea. And what I mean by critical choice is something that permanently shapes the future direction of the song. I'm not talking about like a hi-hat loop. I'm talking about the melody is going to be like this and it's going to be played by this patch and it's going to come in here at this time. And I don't even need it in MIDI anymore. It's in audio and the effects are printed on and everything. Because the thing is, you're going to butcher the first 100 tracks. And the reason you need to commit and go through the whole process is because with every track, you're going to learn one thing. Every track is going to be fucked up in some way. But you're going to learn that, oh, my mix was like lacking around like 200, 300. So then in the next song, you're going to just like boost the EQ in the low end. And then by the time you get to the end of the song, you realize, oh, that's fucked up too. That's not the way to go about it. So on the third track, you try layering and then you're like, oh, okay, this is it. And then bam, it's more in the direction that you want. But with that, now you uncover a new thing. Maybe you EQ'd it in a fucked up way and it's too extreme and you didn't choose like the right sound. So the thing is, you never learn any of these things unless you're committing, because everything is kind of in this like ambiguous area where, oh, it could just be a different combination of patches, or oh, I could just change the EQ, or it's like, no, you need to commit even if it's the wrong choice and see it to the end. And yes, you're about to invest 10 more hours before you uncover what's wrong with the track, and it might suck. Maybe you can't go back and undo that one thing so easily, but fuck it. If you can say these 100 next tracks are not gonna matter, I'm just gonna see them through to the end, you're gonna learn so much if you just pick up one thing from every track, feel the pain of not being able to fix that idea that you think right now is your best shit, and keep it moving. By track 101, like, you're gonna be upset with what you thought was your best idea on a bad day.
Dude, honestly, this concept is so funny to hear, simply for the fact that, like, when I started the Rip Kenny project, I stopped labeling projects by name first. I started labeling them by number, and then the title, because the title changes like maybe 3 or 4 times as I'm working on the song. Or then you write lyrics and then it's like, okay, that's the title. And if you change the title all the time, then you're like, wait, what was that? And like, so I started numbering them when I started the Rip Kenny project, and like the songs for the album, like, was basically like 80 through 105. And like almost, like, I would say 80%, 85% of those, of the tracks that actually got released are like in the 90s and like 100 plus. Like, that actually is a thing. And I mean, I don't know how many tracks I made before I started Rip Kenny. I'd been producing for like maybe 5 years before I settled on this. But like, that is legitimately like a number that, like, what I'm saying is that you should do that. You are 100% correct. Like, you need to get the reps in. And then, like you said, you will laugh at the thing that you thought was so sick 100 tracks ago. You'll be like, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm so glad that I was stoked on it then, but look at how far I've come. And I'm so happy that I didn't put all my eggs in that basket back then, because I would have burned myself out on shit that wasn't there yet. And like, you need to get those reps in to completion to be able to like guide those decisions. Like I've said a million times on this episode, like as you put the reps in to finish songs, you realize in that last 5% where you went wrong in the beginning that makes your life so much harder at the end, right? So then every next song you create, you're more aware of those pitfalls just as you're choosing instruments and arrangement and stuff. Like, and then when you get to the end, like you just have less and less issues, and it's like your tracks just start sounding, you know, better and better as you go, putting, you know, assuming you're putting the same amount of effort into each one, like you just naturally have less issues at the end.
Yeah, I kind of see it like playing chess, right? If you get checkmated at the end, it's not because of the last 10 moves you made. It's your formation in the beginning was ass, and you followed it up ass, and then you didn't know what you were doing till the end. It's not you moving him over 2 squares in the end and then you get checkmated. It's like there were steps way before that, but you wouldn't have seen the full extent of how that all played out unless you got cornered, unless you got put in that situation where now you can't back out. Now you've lost the game undeniably. You can delay the losing of the game, but you've undeniably lost. And so with tracks too, it's painful to come to that realization. You might move your king back and forth 1 square because you can fuck with your opponent, but at the end of the day, you lost, right? So with your tracks, you need to acquire some failures. You need to rep to failure, right? You need to see it through to the end and see how you've fallen short and feel that pain of, I can't fix this, and this is why. And trust me, the lesson will stick with you because you're not going to want to fuck up the next track in the same way. You're not going to want to waste that amazing idea in the same way. But the thing is, you're never going to learn those lessons at the beginning because everything is still a possibility. Everything is still open. Every path is there for you to take. It's not until you reach the end of the path where you're like, oh fuck, this one leads to the middle of nowhere. I should have went towards the beach that way and I would have had a nicer outcome, right? So yeah, I think that's a huge point. Like, you know, I think if there's one takeaway is that if you're tweaking any one thing for too long, it's time to think back to the last 3 to 5 variations of that thing you did, the last 3 to 5 patches, and just fucking pick one and keep it moving. And you will learn so much more.
Speaking of pick one and keep it moving, when you guys are mixing your tracks, do you bounce everything to audio or just some? Really?
It actually drives me up a wall when people like bounce like drum stems. Like don't get me wrong.
Fair. I actually
why bounce your kick into like one stem or like a whole drum loop? Because it just like closes off so many options. To me, I think the biggest benefit from bouncing stuff down comes from being able to see exactly what's going on in the waveform. So like you can do that through bouncing, but drums are really short and tight, and they're usually not going to cause many like unexpected problems. Like you can see everything you need to see in the sampler.
That's a really good point. Like, honestly, I will bounce a single, like I will just hit resample and solo the kick and solo the snare just to like see how long the tail is and make sure on the spot where the distance is the shortest, the kick doesn't bleed into the snare, because everything's sidechained to those 2 things, except they're not sidechained to themselves. So like if they bled over, it would be an issue, but literally that's all I do, because my kick and snare are MIDI routed to trigger all the rest of the side chains. I don't bounce my kick and snare. I do bounce hi-hats and percussion, but I actually do agree on that. Definitely bounce your sub. Like, don't 100%. Fuck that one up. Like, you'd be surprised. Even just your serum init, like sine wave, direct out. There is a 15 millisecond release on that init patch that you think won't do anything. And then all of a sudden you bounce that sub and you look at all of the places where it cut off at a kick or at a snare. And there is that little overhang. That shit does matter, at least for me, where I'm trying to smush so much shit into some over distorted mix. Like that stuff, that cleanliness does matter for me. But like, I would say like Trish mentioned in the chat, she duplicates and bounces the copy. That is what I do too, because I have commitment issues when it comes to bouncing audio from a stem of something that I don't know if it's done yet or not. Like when I am in the mixing stage and I'm like, okay, you got to start flattening stuff or you're never going to finish this. Like I will duplicate it, flatten it, and I'll actually leave just a big stack of frozen tracks at the top of, for instance, like the bass group or whatever, that are like everything, like they're turned off and everything is frozen, but I could unfreeze it, screw with it, and bounce another copy if I needed to. And that's how I mentally get over the hurdle of bouncing stuff to audio. But the funny part about that is once you duplicate it and bounce it, render it to audio, 80 to 90% of the time you never go back. And there's like that 10% between 80 and 90 that you're probably going to find some sort of workaround just with the audio version that you already have, just so you don't have to like go through the steps of going back to the old one, bouncing it, putting all the processing back on that one that you've added to the new one. And you find that you really didn't need the last version. Like sometimes you did, but
put in a percentage. How often you think that is? How often do you actually go back?
5 to 10%.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
It's literally the act of just committing it that we have a problem with.
Yeah, exactly.
Mentally. But like once you do it, you never fucking go back and touch it.
Yeah.
It's just a mental obstacle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like, yeah, go for it.
I was going to say, it's funny. I used to be like such a stickler for this, like always bouncing everything I could, as soon as I could. I've gotten much more lax about it. It's kind of like if like I'm just running a Serum instance and it's like I'm having no CPU issues, like often I'll just like leave it there. And like plus like y'all know me, like I mix and master every version. I just like I throw a mix on each version and just be like, okay, cool, like here we go. This is the first draft. It's mixed and mastered, so I can actually reference it against shit in my car, so it's not like a quiet, jumbled mess. And if I can get away with throwing all my mixing and my mastering on the thing without getting any slowdown, cool. I'll just leave it, and then I'll commit to audio when I find it really like necessary for like a reason. Like sometimes just because, man, I haven't fucked with this in forever, might as well get rid of this so I can like put a bunch more plugins on this other thing. And sometimes it's like, hey, I really want to like do a chop and a stutter effect and a reverse on this shit. And like, I really like messing with audio. So often I'll do it just so I can fuck with the audio. But I used to be very like dogmatic about it for myself. And I have lightened way up on that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, it's like really just like what works for you to be able to commit to that song to finish it, right? Because more important than bouncing any one track to audio is that you finish the song, right?
Yes.
And if it speeds up your process and you're okay, and you don't need it to be the loudest thing ever, like fuck it, it don't matter. For me, there are certain things that I would just never leave, like stuff that has reverb or like I know that there's a tail or something like that. I'm always going to flatten those. But like I've definitely left stuff like that that's like quiet or background stuff. Doesn't matter. Like whatever. Leave it. It's really just like for me in my process, like knowing that I'm sure everything is cleaned up and not going to fuck up my mix helps me move forward. Yeah. Because mentally there's no longer but what did you miss? It's all like all the boxes are ticked. Cool. Like this is ready to be mastered and done. And to your point, Luke, like I think everyone kind of mixes as they go. Like if there's an issue, you just like kind of solve it in the moment if you can, so that it's not making your ears bleed while you work on it. But like anytime I bounce a draft, I just always throw this one mastering chain that's like 4 years old that I just put on everything, because I know exactly what that mastering chain sounds like on a finished track, on a barely mixed track, on a almost finished track. Like if you're bouncing a draft, at least put a mastering chain on it. So like you said, you can reference it back to back. But I think we should move the conversation to committing to finishing that song, right?
Woo! Yeah.
Finishing and then releasing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree, because I don't think this is just limited to like mixing, and I definitely don't want that to be the takeaway of today.
So like for me, I feel like once you commit to like finishing and you're like, you're gonna release this song, like I'm gonna release it in 3 months, whatever, like you gotta work on mixing, finishing it, it's gotta be done. Like I have actually found that, like, to what you said at the very beginning of this episode, like you got to commit to a pretty good idea sometimes. Like sometimes the most special moments of a song happen in that last 10% where you're like, you know, fixing this, and then you're like, you know what, this actually doesn't need to be here, and then like this other element just like blossoms, and you like accidentally bounce something and there's this weird glitchy tail on it, and you're like, oh my god, that's such a better fill for this thing or whatever, and it like brings the whole section together. Like if you didn't commit to finishing that track and actually getting it done, you never would have ended up in that spot where you're like, holy shit, like this actually came together even better than I would have imagined, because you put the hours in and committed to finishing it. I think that that is a testament to why you need that commitment to release the song, because it pushes you to get all the way to the end. And sometimes getting all the way to the end releases and uncovers these really cool bits that make the song even more special and that make it even more worth releasing.
100%.
Amen. And honestly, like, so much of this stuff that we've been talking about is stuff that did not start easy for me at all, but has become easy to me through so much practice, you know, whether that's like committing to just a musical idea, like, cool, melody, I like it, moving on. Ooh, the bass line works, let's go. Hey, bounce it to audio so I can chop it up. Awesome, right? Mix and master it. That's something I'm really committed to committing to. But this, like, actually having the song be done and putting it out in the world is currently like a tripping point for me. Like I've had bouts in my life, or like chunks of life, where it was, okay, I'm putting this song out, now this song, I'm putting this album out, I'm putting this EP out, and I haven't put out anything in an actual year currently. That last track I put, it has been a whole year. It was last October that the I Love You Like remix dropped, and it had been 6 months before that since I released, like, I want to say like 6 tracks. I released tracks like for the first half of 2021, once a month-ish, and then I released, I think maybe I released like 5 in the beginning of 2021, and then I released that one in the end of 2021, and now it's been a year since I've released. And part of it was I just needed a break from a lot of stuff. I've talked about that like on our burnout episode and stuff, but like now getting back to, okay, cool, look, I've got this pile of music that needs to come out, but like actually deciding which of these songs is actually done and that I can be done with it and put it in the release pipeline is definitely something it's proving hard for me to get over the hurdle of, because I know that if I just wait 3 months of learning stuff and practicing stuff, I can make that song a fraction of a percentage point better. and like, oh, but now the fucking growl on the bass is just a little spicier. Oh man, now my kicks are cutting through just a little better. And it's like at a certain point, I got to remember to stop doing that. And the point's probably well past.
Definitely.
Probably blew by that street sign.
I say your skills are way past good enough to getting it to sound great on Spotify. I don't think you need to worry about that. Yeah. I mean, if you don't mind, like, let's dissect it a little bit. Like, what if you were to release 3 songs in the next 3 months? Like, what would they be, and what would the hangups be? So maybe we could potentially work through them.
You know, I mean, I have so many songs that I could totally release right now and it'd be fine. That I don't even know where to start. That's definitely, I've got an embarrassment of riches for songs that are plenty good enough to put out, and some songs that I'm like, man, I kind of really want this one out there, but do I want to put that one out before this one? And is this one better than that one? And so I think one of the main problems is like overthinking the process. I could just pick literally any of these songs and be like, you're good enough, bitch. Go out there into the world.
What if you do a double concept album?
Double concept album. Then you'll see my album sometime in 2032.
Yeah. Dude, I was going to say, like, if I was you, I would listen through just the cream of the crop that I like loved when I started making it. And I would be like, this one's my favorite. And was honestly something, it sounds a bit illogical sometimes, but like, get feedback in the middle stage of like finishing the song, and like, you know, whatever feedback comes in, like, don't ignore it. But like, sometimes I have to just like tunnel vision on some shit and be like, I know I love this, and I know, you know, this person said this and this person said this, and I'm going to try and take that into account the best I can. But ultimately, like, I love it, and I'm just going to finish it the way that I want to, doing my best to keep in mind like some opinions, but like ultimately it's my taste that guided why I even made the song in the first place. And my taste, being confident in my own taste, is going to mean that I'm actually going to put the song out, and I just got to fucking put it out because I like it. And I think for you should just go through and find the ones that you actually like. Don't worry about anything about the mix and master. They're all probably good enough to release.
They're all above that like 90% threshold of like, it'll stand up on Spotify for sure.
Yeah. Don't worry about
plays. It's loud enough. It hits on a system good enough. Yeah, like I feel you.
Honestly, I want to play devil's advocate here too for the people that might not be in that position. Even if it doesn't hit all that criteria, it's fine.
Yeah,
because it's better for it to be out.
Do you love it? Did you love it when you started making it? Because you can start to hate tracks you love too.
Like,
did you will hate? Not you can. You will.
I had hated 13 out of 14 songs that got released on the album at one point or another. There's a rare bird in there that didn't actually kill me.
Yeah.
But
which one?
Letting Go, actually. Letting Go might be the song with the least save as versions that I've ever finished. But
it's so good.
Thank you. It's really just like
that song is not okay. It's better than okay.
It's not okay, but it's okay, you know.
Still waiting for my t-shirt.
Yeah, fuck the opinions of anyone that's ever listened to it. That one dude that said it wasn't good, fucking Dylan's feedback, anything. Ultimately, you got to be like, do I like this?
Yeah,
cool. I'm gonna put in the fucking 10 steps of this checklist to
not
finish
just
it and
cool.
release it.
Sorry to cut you off, but not just cool, but why? Why cool? Why this idea in particular? And then do way more of that. Don't just be like, oh, I like this for arbitrary reason that I don't know why. When you find out why you like something, this is why I say you're not going to care about that track a year from now, is because you're going to take what you learn from that track. You're going to take that why that really stands out from you, and then you're going to do that over 20 more tracks. So it's going to be that thing you love plus something else. And then maybe that something else isn't it. So then you do a third track. So it's this plus something else. And then, oh, this is a really good pair together. And then you're going to write 10 tracks where you try and figure out what the fuck the third piece of the package is. And then you find out on the 10th, and then you're like, oh, these 3 things really work. Meanwhile, none of these tracks are getting released. But 3 years from now, that's like the cornerstone of like your sound.
I feel that.
I mean, you could play devil's advocate to that. If you have established
Is that angel's advocate if you're playing devil's advocate off the devil's advocate?
Yes. If you have established a direction and this song is 90% of the sound that you're going for, like if you have put in the effort to get to the point where you can mix and master a song to stand up on Spotify, like if you release those songs now and start getting some traction, some fans, by the time 3 years down the road, when you're like, this is the cornerstone of what I did, and like those tracks are good, but these are the ones that now there's 2,000 people that follow me and actually are seeing these new ones, would you be farther along?
Hell yeah. Speed will always win, but it's the quality through quantity. You can't just have speed. You need to be able to, I don't want to say do this effortlessly. It'll never be effortless, but you want to have things in place to help you succeed.
Yeah.
And Hexadevi was asking, how can we simplify instead of overthink? I think
just where I wanted to go with it. So thank you.
Perfect. Yeah. So I think having systems in place and letting go of some of your, I know we as creatives love to be all like, my vision, this, and like it has to be perfectly how I imagined, and like there can't be like one shred of like something that fucking anybody has ever uttered in human existence thus far. Like everything needs to be just fucking uniquely me, never said or done before, right? Yeah. Now the problem with that is it never fucking leads to anywhere, right? Better to take, if you can see, like, I want to separate this from the hobbyists versus the people that like really want to like build up an artist brand and get fans and stuff, is you're releasing a product. If you knew, for example, right, there's somebody already established in dubstep, already in house, already in blah, 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 who's the top person. I'd be willing to bet you can make a pretty lucrative business selling Coca-Cola, but you're never going to outdo Coca-Cola selling Coca-Cola because they figured that thing out, right? Now, there's going to be consistency that comes with the brand, right? So every time you go there, you know what to expect, right? Same as every time you go see Deadmau5, you know you're not going to hear rhythm, you know you're not going to hear drum and bass, probably you're going to hear 128 type of shit. Any of your favorite artists you go to, unless there's some niche experimental artist, they're going to have a consistent sound that you're going for. They're going to have a consistent vibe. There's going to be specific type of people going there. It's going to be specific, right? There's not going to be one dude in a shark costume, one dude in a tux. It's going to be like pretty on par with the whole vibe of the experience. So you got to think about, what experience am I trying to create? Not, let me be the most prolific producer that can do this fucking thing and this thing and this and this, and like I'm going to be some like prodigy producer. If you can figure out what constants you want to set into place for what you're trying to do. So if you're trying to be a house producer, you don't need to know how to do drum and bass drums. You need to get your house drums fucking sounding amazing, right? And you need to work on that until you get that part down and then move on. Now, you need to find, to do that, what kick samples do I like? What clap samples do I like? What hi-hats, whatever. When you find that, you need to commit to certain ones that sound how you want to sound. Otherwise, with those 3 choices alone, there's thousands and thousands of samples. You're going to get fucking caught up here alone, which means you need to make a commitment at this stage so that you can get drums down reliably. Now you need to learn how to mix drums. Now you need to learn melodies. Now you need to learn this, that. So with all these decisions you have to make, ultimately at the end of the day, your job isn't to be a composer or a sound designer or whatever. Your job is to finish songs, even if you are composing and sound designing and all of that. So basically what I'm suggesting from all this is, if you just go into a project and you're not sure what direction you want to go in, you need to have more intent. Essentially, you need to pick an end result, and you need to look at it like a school assignment and try to achieve this result, and then look at it. Is it an A plus? Probably not. Is it a B? Maybe not if it's your first try. Is it a C or D, or where do you feel like C plus maybe? And then you need to tear it apart and figure out the stuff that doesn't work. The stuff that works, that doesn't limit your creativity. For example, having punchy drums, having a loud, consistent sub that sits well with the drums, stuff like that, good side chain, stuff like that's not going to limit your creativity. You are able to insert your ideas into this framework that sounds good, but it's not going to pigeonhole your ideas, right? So the more of this stuff you figure out, maybe it's, I like to write in the key of F minor. I like to use bells. I like to work around 140 BPM. Here's my handful of drum samples that I really like, blah, blah, blah. You commit to that for 20 songs and you figure out how to make the most of these tools. Because if you only have one go at it and you're like, this is my best track, and it used bells and it was an F minor 140, blah, blah, blah. It's like you're panhandling for gold, or you're like mining for gold, and you find like a tiny little nugget and you're like, I'm happy with this. And you put it in your pocket and you turn around and you go home. But it's like, no, you've just now arrived at what the fuck is working for you. So you need to double down on that and write more tracks like that, because I guarantee that first one is just the start of where you can take this. Like, now you found your system and you don't have to only write within this, but like maximize what you've done here. Like, anybody that's stuck, take your last 5 tracks, figure out what's the best thing you like about those, and then make a track with those, and then figure out what don't I like about it. And then you're going to learn, oh, my drum mixing is ass. So then you need to get your system down to where you're not spending hours on drum mixing. You find out, why is it ass? Oh, I mix my hi-hats too loud. So that should not be an issue moving forward. Like, you figure out one thing each time. But if you're always switching samples, you're always doing different shit, then there's so many variables, it's hard to like figure out like where all these differences coming from. Versus if you find your lane, you write within that, and then you try to just get better at your lane, it becomes so much easier to figure out where you're lacking, how to improve, and then how to do it better the next time.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. Amen. I think we should round out this conversation with a discussion of the even more macro of committing to music.
Don't do it. It'll hurt you, the ones you love, everyone around you.
It might.
And if you don't want to take that good advice, here's the rest of this podcast is for you.
Yeah, you're here for the right reasons. But it is true. Like, if you really want to like be like successful, I mean, that's such a weird word to use with music because it's not about that. But if you want to make the music that you hear in your head, if you want to reach the creative potential that you have, you got to put in a lot of fucking work.
You better work, bitch.
Hours. Yes, you got to work, bitch. That's basically what it is.
Yeah. Put in that time. And, you know, we've been talking about it the whole episode. Like, you gotta commit to that. You're going to do this. You got to commit your time. You got to commit to learning. You got to commit to showing up and being bad at it. You got to commit to then showing up and being mediocre after you work your ass off for a long time. And then eventually, hopefully, showing up and being good at it.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I think it's kind of it's important to note, though, that like you along the way, you do and can and should take pride in the steps that you're making. It's not like looking back on the music that I made in those earlier days, like, it's not great. Most of them aren't even good, but like, I still enjoyed making a lot of that stuff. And if you enjoy the process of making the music, like that can be enough to get you through the slog of actually reaching that potential. And it's not like you should feel discouraged by the fact that your song doesn't sound like your favorite artist right now. It actually probably shouldn't. You shouldn't try to make your stuff sound like your favorite artist. Like, there was a podcast episode that we talked about, like, finally having the confidence in not having my music sound like the reference, and being okay with that, and actually moving in the direction that the shit wanted to go naturally, and figuring out like the solution to the style that I could be confident in moving forwards, and just be like, fuck it. I don't need to do all the things. Like, this is the thing. This other stuff can just slide back. Like, that kind of decision is the kind of thing that will allow you to fucking finish the stuff, commit to those ideas, commit to your style, and ultimately make more music that people hear. But like that, it takes a long time to get there, and a long time to commit to that style, to even have the for someone like me, who like, I don't ever think the thing that I made is the greatest thing ever. Like, I like some of it like a lot.
Except for that first one that was going to be the Tomorrowland, whatever year.
You know how fucking funny that is, that I had more confidence in the music I made in the first 2 years of producing than I ever had.
Of course.
Dunning-Kruger.
Literally.
Our good friend.
Talking about it.
We
Our
should get him on the podcast.
Is that too
Sponsored by this graph you can search on Google Images. But yeah, I mean, it's really just like, do you like the process? Cool. Then commit to putting time aside to work on it. Like, commit, like, plan full studio days, start to finish, no interruptions, no phone, no internet, no Netflix. Literally from when you wake up until when that thing is fleshed out, either at night or in the early hours of the next day. Like, you got to put those days on your calendar, and even be okay with a lot of those days finishing a rough draft of a song that's just okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you're gonna
bad.
show up, or even bad.
You can finish really bad songs and you will get better for it.
You should finish bad songs.
I finished a lot of bad songs.
I continue to finish bad songs.
Oh, yes. So I just looked up my new favorite version of the Dunning-Kruger effect graph. So just for anybody that hasn't heard this before. So on the vertical axis, we've got confidence. And then on the horizontal axis, we have competence. So confidence goes from low to high, and competence goes from know nothing to guru. And so we start down here in the corner like most graphs would, and it goes straight up to the peak of Mount Stupid. And then it drops sharply into the Valley of Despair, and then slowly picks up on the slope of enlightenment to the plateau of sustainability.
Wow.
As you move towards Guru.
Well,
peak of Mount Stupid.
Peak of Mount Stupid, right? Oh man, I'm glad I clicked on this.
Fucking great.
Love that.
And with that,
there's one more thing I want to quickly talk about that I think is really important that you reminded me of, Evan. And I feel like this is probably one of the most helpful things with like students, but also you reminded me because I started thinking about the tectonic stuff. And I'd say for anybody, I don't. We'll
the tectonic shift in your musical sensibilities.
Anyway,
very slowly over tens of millions of years.
Hexadevi and Trish were saying they can't pick a lane.
Yeah, me neither.
I think one really helpful thing here, which really, whether it's for your branding or for your sound or for anything, committing to what you don't want, what you don't like, who, and I know this is very controversial nowadays, but especially if you're building a brand, you need to be thinking about who you want to exclude. Not racially, not sexually, not nothing like that, but you want to be thinking, is this for a posh crowd? Is this for a lit crowd? Is this for a classy crowd? Is this for women? Is this for whoever? And you need to be dialed into that lane, because it will, for example, if you know that you're not writing music for an emo crowd, that helps narrow down your choices, right? For example, I like emo music, but I know that's not my crowd. So I will appreciate that music, but if I want my stuff to stay on brand, it makes me very aware of the direction I don't want to go in. And so there's certain stuff that I don't like to hear, whether that's from like sound textures or lyrically or whatever, where knowing what I don't want helps me guide my choices into what I want. And I'd say that's what helped me gain more confidence in my sound and which direction I ultimately want to go in, because I feel like everything I made leading up to that point, there was a lot of cool tracks that I loved, there was a lot of genre hopping, there was a lot of this, that, but any track that didn't teach me something positive that I liked, it taught me what I don't want to do in a future track. It taught me that, hey, maybe I'm not going to be the trap dubstep rhythm DJ. Maybe I'm going to be this thing instead. And so I just don't make this shit anymore. And that's cool. You can have a day where you mess around, but 80-20 rule, if you're trying to make a career in this thing, 80% of your time needs to be in this thing.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, I want to kind of round out. I see so many people in the chat that are talking about, I have issues hopping between genres, and like not one genre really captures my attention enough. And to that, I would say, figure out what your brand and style and like sonic aesthetic is, to the point where it doesn't matter what genre you make relatively. Like, you know, like there are some really defined genres that you probably wouldn't dip into anyways, but like if you have what your core sound is so dialed, you could make a house song, you could make a dubstep tune, you could make anything. If it has your sonic trimmings, it'll work. And so my advice to that would be, maybe dial in on like what things other than genre define what you're trying to do, figure out what those are, and then maybe start slightly narrower. And then as people understand what your sonic signature is, they will accept the further reaches of that boundary. But you can totally do that as long as you set yourself up for success.
Yeah.
I'm going to play advocate again here and say I personally wouldn't recommend that. I would say find a primary genre for 80% of your time. I think it'll be more fruitful if you find you're stuck in that pit of despair, or you've made camp at the peak of Mount Stupid, as Joel's saying here, which is fucking hilarious. I think we've all made camp at the peak of Mount Stupid. But if you find you're there and you're just stuck in uncertainty, I would say personally don't do that. I'm just challenging you a little.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally fine. I mean, ultimately, I do agree generally that like start narrower as you figure it out. And then as you gain fans that understand what you do, like you can branch out one layer of onion at a time, and people will still come along for the ride because they have come to like what you do, not for the genre, but for how you present the music that you do, right? But generally, I would agree, like if you're in those like beginner intermediate stages, genre hopping might lead to not enough cohesion in learning those things that make your music special, right? But yeah, ultimately, I think we can all agree whatever you're gonna do,
I don't agree.
You gotta commit to it. Fuck you.
And I gotta say, like, honestly, I'm one of those people that also has a real trouble sticking to any genre. And sometimes it just means you gotta like make your own blend, I think. Like, for a while I've been like, oh man, I kind of like this dubstep shit, but not really liking like doing crazy sound design. And I definitely love hip hop, and I'm not really trying to make hip hop tracks. And I love R&B, but I'm not an R&B singer. And like, so like, what is this like put together? And like lately I've been liking like more positivity and like growth in my lyrics. So I'm like realizing like, you know what? I can make like general bass music that has more of a hip hop drum style than anything, and has positive lyrics. And I've been rapping forever, so I might as well throw some raps in there because I'm good at it. Like, and also like, if you're like, we're talking about like beginner, intermediate, release level person, like for like when you're releasing shit as an artist project, it's probably a good idea to have some sort of consistency in what people should expect from you. But if you're like beginner, intermediate, beginning to produce and haven't released anything yet, just make anything you want, learn from it. Like, just learn from it and like show it to people. And if everybody you show your music to is like, yo, this is clearly the best shit you do, yeah, probably 80-20 focus on that. You know, like I was trying to make sound design music and it wasn't really impressing anybody. And I was like, okay, good. Now I can stop trying to make sound design music and like make more melodic shit, because melodies come way easier to me than sound design. Like I got clear market research back. Like the people I showed shit to liked my melodies and my lyrics a lot better than they liked my, you know, attempts at being Excision.
Yeah. I would just say as the cherry on top, ultimately you gotta fucking trust the shit that you really like and your taste and your style and your authentic representation of what you can make, and dive into that. Like you were saying, Luke, all this stuff that's feeling natural to you is because it's authentic to you. And that's the stuff that transcends all the other bullshit that we've talked about. Like, it needs to come from that authentic spot, and then the rest of the stuff, as long as you committed to finishing it, doesn't matter nearly as much.
Amen. Commit to something, anything. Commit to one thing today. Woo!
Yeah.
All right. Let's tell them peace then.
Okay.
All right, let's commit to this piece.
Yeah, I want to commit to going to a potluck because I'm hungry. And peace among worlds. Ow, ow. Woo.
Peace.
Bye, friends. See ya.
Shout outs if you
Later.
committed to listening this far.
Did you commit an hour and 5 minutes to this? Thank you.
I like it.
All right, humans, thank you so much for being with us. Make sure to check out thehumanmusicpodcast.com for all your needs. Make sure to check out the Song of the Week, Sinister Intentions by Rip Kinney and Dream Tonic, friend of the podcast. The links are down below. And make sure to check out Rip Kinney's Escapism album video. It is super cool. It tells a whole story, really ties the whole album together, even better than the audio already has. And then support our sponsors. The Spice It Up Percussion and Foley Pack has over 2,000 percussion loops and one-shots from Luke Rain and Porch, along with 50 rack instruments for Ableton and Reason. Dojo TV, it's where we record this, and there's a whole bunch of other free producer live stream classes from the Producer Dojo Senseis over there. Free. Did I mention it's free? Come on, y'all. Sign up. It's beautiful. You can join us in the chat. Tesco's Patreon, where you can get all of this educational content Tesco makes, project files, behind-the-scenes footage, access to his Discord, track feedback, private lessons, and much more. There's the weekly download, where you can learn from our mentor Il Gates and his private weekly group lessons, and get access to over 300 more episodes in the archive for just $20 a month. And guest practices, where you can learn from Seth Drake at the Approach Institute. He's the best engineer we know, and your first class over there is free. Till 2 weeks from now, humans. Peace. Peace among worlds.